Hello, welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm making what I believe to be my family's most beloved cake, and that is a pound cake. You just can't go wrong with a good pound cake. Now we've got several family recipes, but this one happens to be my personal favorite, and that's a lemon sour cream pound cake. I'm starting with 3 cups of granulated sugar, and that's going right into my mixing bowl. I'm putting the sugar in first because I'm also adding some butter to the sugar, and I found that if you put your sugar in first, then your butter doesn't stick to the bottom of your mixing bowl. Now this is a cup of butter, which is 2 sticks, and I'm using salted butter. I almost always use salted butter in every recipe. I just cut back on the salt content that it calls for in the recipe, and there you go. Now I'm using my stand mixer and my paddle attachment. If you don't have a stand mixer, don't worry about it. I've made a pound cake many a times with a hand mixer, and it turned out perfect. The reason why I'm using my stand mixer today is because this butter and sugar are going to mix for 5 to 7 minutes on medium speed. There we go. I mixed it for 5 minutes. Now my recipe says not to skimp on that, to make sure that you mix the butter and sugar for a full 5 minutes. So I always do that. Now it's time for the lemon part of this pound cake. I squeezed a couple of lemons, and this is a 1/4 cup, and this is going right into my sugar and my butter mixture. And I'm also adding a teaspoon of lemon extract. I'm going to add some lemon zest at the end. I don't want to add it right now because if I do, it's going to stick to my beater, and I do not want to lose any of that lemon flavor. Now I'm going to mix this together for about a minute until it's well blended. That smells so good. Now it's time for the eggs. I'm going to add these one by one. I'm going to put my mixer on low speed. All my eggs have been mixed in, and now I'm going to turn my mixer up to a high speed for about 30 seconds, making sure that everything is blended together. This looks so good. Now let's talk about the dry ingredients. I'm using cake flour. If you want to use all-purpose flour, you can definitely do that, but I like to use cake flour when making cake. It's just got a little bit of a finer texture to it, and it makes a lighter and fluffier pound cake. The recipe calls for 3 cups of sifted flour. There we go. Now I used the salted butter, but I am just going to add just a little pinch. And I'm also adding baking soda. I know this is a really large bag, but I use baking soda for all sorts of things. I put it in my laundry. Of course, I cook with it. I clean with it. And this whole bag costs about $2. So why not? Now the recipe calls for a teaspoon. So that goes right in. Now, I'm just going to stir this until it's sifted and all my flour and everything else is at the bottom of my bowl. There we go. Now, what I'm going to do is alternate my dry ingredients with my wet ingredients. I've got a cup and a 1/4 cup of sour cream. This is regular sour cream, no light or non-fat in this recipe. hey, it's called pound cake for a reason. And what I'm going to do is alternate the dry with the wet, starting with my dry and ending with my dry. And what I do is I add my flour in 1 cup intervals, and then I divide my sour cream, add it only twice. That way I'm not just constantly adding and mixing, adding and mixing. This is an easy way to keep track, and also it's a way not to over mix your cake. If you do, then you're going to have a really tough cake. So what I'm going to do is add this flour right in. I'm going to put my mixer on low speed and I'll mix it just until it's blended. There we go. Now, I've got my sour cream. Just divide the cream in half, and that way you'll have less mixing. Now again, I'm just gonna mix this on low speed until I no longer see the sour cream. I'm adding my last cup of flour. Oh my goodness, if you could smell in this kitchen that sour cream and that lemon smells so good. Now I'm just gonna blend this last cup until it's completely mixed together. Low speed. Look at this batter. Doesn't this look beautiful? Now I just wanna stir this and I wanna pull it up from the bottom. I wanna make sure that there's nothing that's not blended together. And last, I'm gonna add our lemon zest. I'm waiting to do this last because, as I said, I didn't want all of this zest to stick to my beater. I want every bit of this to go into our cake. Now, I am zesting 1 lemon. And this is going to be the equivalent to about a tablespoon. And I just want to make sure that I only get the yellow. Don't get into the white. If you do, it's going to be bitter. And I like to do it upside down. That way it helps me to keep track of how much zest I'm actually getting. And it also doesn't fall all around the bowl. This smells so good. This zest is where most of your flavor is at. And look, I got about a tablespoon. And all of that is going right in. I don't want to waste any of that delicious flavor. It smells so nice and fresh. Now I'm going to stir this in. Just make sure it's all blended in all throughout my batter. Look at that. Isn't it beautiful? That looks perfect. Now, to bake this, I'm using a 10-inch tube pan, also known as an angel food cake pan. I don't want to use a bundt cake pan because the top of the cake is going to be the best part, and I don't want to turn that over and have the top of the cake be at the bottom, because this is going to make such a beautiful, light and crispy, chewy crust. Now I'm making this for my neighbor. She was recently diagnosed with cancer, and I prayed and I said, Lord, what can I do for her? And I thought, you know, I am going to make her a pound cake. She's going through chemotherapy right now, and I know one thing's for sure, your taste buds change. So I thought, I don't know of anyone's taste buds that didn't like pound cake. I greased just a little extra one because there's no way that I could make a pound cake without giving my husband just a little bit of it. So most of this is going into this tube pan, and I have buttered it, and I sprinkled a little bit of granulated sugar on it and also floured it really well. And this is a non-stick pan. And if you've got one, I would suggest using it because pound cakes can stick on you. It's such a heavy and dense batter. So you want to do everything in your power to keep this from sticking. Now, if it sticks, I will be making a trifle out of this, or my husband will actually stake claim to it. He knows if I mess up a pound cake, it is his. And I do believe that's how the trifle was created. Somebody messed up a cake and said, you know what, I'm going to salvage this. Now, let me just put a little bit of this batter into this one. Oh my goodness. I know that is going to be good. And my husband ought to be here in a few minutes, and I'll let him lick the bowl. He would love that if I don't get to it first. Now I have my oven preheated to 325 degrees, and this is going to cook for about an hour. Now your cooking time can vary. Sometimes I've kept it in the oven for up to an hour and 15 minutes. I have no idea why it fluctuates from one to the other, but it just does. Could be humidity, it could be the temperature of what I'm cooking with. And by the way, I'm not sure if I told you this or not, but those eggs were at room temperature. Super important when you're baking. Now, this is going right in the middle of my center rack. And this is going alongside, and this is going to take about 30, maybe 40 minutes at the most to cook. And I'll see you back here in a little bit when it's done. My goodness, look at this cake. It looks beautiful. Oh my goodness, it smells so good in this house. Now, I'm taking a toothpick. My recipe actually calls for a broomstick, but I'll use my toothpick instead. And I'm just gonna put this right in and touch bottom. And it comes out clean. That way I know that it is done. Now this needs to sit for about 10 minutes before I take it out of the pan. I'm just gonna let it cool, but in the meantime, let me show you. I may or may not have already had a piece. Oh, my husband is gonna be so happy that I did this. But look how moist and fluffy and perfect this looks. It's perfectly buttery and lemony, and there's just this little bit of a twang from the sour cream that is so good. I think the sour cream and the lemon work perfect together. But listen, if you don't want to make a lemon pound cake, then substitute the lemon for a tablespoon of vanilla. You can even use almond extract, and it's delicious. I've done it many, many a times. Well, I tell you what, before I let this cool, I'm just gonna take this and I'm gonna go around the side of my pan. That way, I know it's not gonna stick. Perfect. I'll see you back here in a few. All right, I'm ready to get this out of the pan. Now, this can be a little bit tricky. This is a 2-part cake pan. I'm just gonna loosen this. Oh yeah, that looks so good. And I'm gonna take my spatula and I'm just gonna run it underneath just to make sure that it's loose like I did the sides. Be super careful that I'm not going to tear up the cake. Just go right around. Like I told you, pound cake can sometimes stick on you, so you can't be too careful. Okay, now I'm using cake boards because I'm taking this over to Lisa's and I don't want her to have to wash a plate. She can just throw this away at the end. And let's see here, move that. Put one on this side and one on this side and flip. Yay! It's hot. Put this right here. Make sure that it's nice and even. And flip. And voila! There we go. I think that she is going to love this. And listen, if you think of her, will you please say a prayer for her? She is going through so much right now, and I know that she would greatly appreciate your prayers. There is power in prayer, and there's power in the name of Jesus. We believe for complete and total healing. And look at this. I think this is going to make her so happy. You're a blessing to me. Thanks so much for watching. Will you press that like button? Go to my page. Follow me. You'll get a notification about once a week when I upload a video. And my husband should be home any minute. And hopefully when he gets here, there will still be some of this pound cake left. See you next time.